So this is Anna Sabramowitz here from eLearner Engaged, and I am here to tell you about another day of learning. I got to listen to one of these presentations. It was a panel presentation at the last VR virtual reality conference in Vancouver. And I listened to a recording of it. It was very cool. The panel had basically people who had been doing VR for NASA for the past 17 years probably, and then people who had been doing VR for 2 years. And were developing just games that were actually astronaut related, so it's pretty cool. One of the things that came up, and I thought it was super interesting, of course, I think everything's super interesting, that when you're, obviously virtual reality now is becoming mainstream or accessible to the everyday consumer. However, one of the things that we're still struggling with is, one, we have the tech, but but we don't have compelling content for that tech. And this guy gave this solid example. And the example was how, remember when the Wii first came out and everybody thought it was super cool? I mean, I still think it's super cool. I actually have the Xbox Kinect, right? However, the challenge there is that the sensor was great, the interaction was revolutionary. However, the content was not good enough for you to come back to it. And I think about that because I used to work at a workplace where we had in our break room, we had the Wii. Nobody ever played it. I think people played it in the very beginning. It was like this cool perk. And then the content wasn't engaging enough for us to want to bowl. Or at least, when you're in there by yourself, that it would be engaging enough for you to do that by yourself. So I see that right now. And I see, obviously, even with ever since I bought the Kinect, the difference is that you don't need a controller, it senses your body. So you can do a lot of things like Dance Revolution, which I love because you're actually using a game to learn a skill, which is very cool. However, I've had the console, I've had it for maybe 2 years now. And as far as the evolution of this medium, it's completely stagnated. And maybe there's different versions of dance things coming out, but it's just plateaued. It's really not used to its full potential as far as even exploring different worlds and interacting with other characters. It's not enough. There's some indie games out there, but nothing really huge has happened in this market for a while. So then you see the same thing happening with VR. There's a lot of experiments out there that you can check out, but as far as they're consistently some kind of awesome engagement, that's not there yet. And also I feel like we're still kind of in those like post-military applications where we're trying to figure out how to use things for the mainstream while the military has been using it all along just to make very contextual training available to people and provide a safe environment for them to practice difficult things like e-learning. And it was funny because today I was thinking about that application where VR has this beautiful, it's still a tool. So you still have to think about, you can't mass apply. So if you're thinking about physical contexts, VR can, if you're thinking about training people on how to do things in the real world, explore things and interact with them in the real world, the virtual world can help you augment that. That's great. And one of the things that we're always striving for in e-learning is to make things contextual, right? And I'm thinking that even when I do my scenarios, which are you making decisions, right? As contextual as you can make that, the most contextual scenario I can make is when I'm simulating you working on a computer in some sort of software and you're trying to solve a problem. That's probably the most contextual you can get with e-learning right now, is me building something where you're using SharePoint and I'm trying to, and something happens and you have to solve it, and you're basically on the job, you're using the same tools, the mouse, the keyboard, and the computer to solve that dilemma. And in VR, the same thing can happen where we apply a virtual reality environment to a place that does not need virtual reality, like let's say a lecture, right? Do we need that? No. You can just send an email, share a video, and if you're just sitting there watching stuff, that kind of reminds me of like Second Life, where you were like a participant in stuff. And sometimes you could do things, maybe build things, but a lot of that stuff was just like a one-way kind of like, let's show up and everybody just observe. So it's like we have to still another way. Stand back, think about the true benefit that this kind of interaction will add. And it's not that you're starting with that tool. Once again, you're not starting with, let's see how VR can augment this. No, what you're going to start with is, what do I want to accomplish? What would be awesome? What would be most helpful? What would give the most value, practice, application? And then look at your toolbox and say, VR is that toolbox, is that tool. Let's use it. But until you're doing that, then you're still just basically making PowerPoint into video and video into VR, which is just not, it just doesn't, the kind of environment that you're trying to simulate is just, it's not, the application isn't there. And I hope I'm explaining myself right. I'm just trying to work through this. Anyways, the other thing that happened today is I got my new second Yeti. This one's called Blackout. And the reason I got this one, and guess what? I already have a USB microphone that looks exactly like this one, except it's silver. But apparently, if you have an older version of the Yeti microphone and the new version of the operating system for Mac, it will not register it as a real USB, and therefore it will not register it as a real microphone in your applications, and therefore it will not work, and therefore you have to buy a new one. That's my life right now. However, the reason I'm sharing this with you, why I got this, is because I'm going to be launching a podcast soon. And the podcast I'm going to run with my partner, Ryan Martin, and we're going to be talking about, probably if it's him, it's going to be a lot of virtual reality applications, a lot of user interface tips and learning mechanics and gamification. And then with me, it's just going to be a random crapshoot of just bugs, slugs, instructional design, technology, all kinds of things. I like to talk about and discuss everything in detail and debate it as much as I can possibly. So as soon as that launches, I'm going to be sharing some links for you. Also meeting with another student next week. Really pumped about that because she's just getting into she's already talking to subject matter experts, which is super cool. I'm really pumped about that. I think she's pumped about it too. And also, basically, we're moving into the stage where she's going to start drafting something. And I love this company that she works for. They work in agile sprints, which is so cool because, you could see how it obviously affects your production speed to implementation and iteration, which is great. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about their processes because it's just it's cool to see that in action rather than just having a bunch of people tell you about what agile would look like in a company that actually adopted it. So yeah, that was my 9 minutes and 22 seconds rolling. Hope you enjoyed this, friend. And if you have your experience with VR, or if you have experiences with context or challenges with context that you've seen, I'd love to hear about it. Email me directly at anna@elearnerengaged, or just comment below so we can all benefit from your experience and the discussion that follows. Take care. Bye.